God.
Here we are in the season of Advent, this season devoted to waiting for God's decisive action in history. In this season, we are also waiting for the end of the pandemic, the peaceful transfer of power, justice long delayed, healing of the wounds of sin. We need spiritual grounding and sustenance for our waiting. We need to hear that God is at work, has plans for our good, for our salvation. One day a few years ago, I was singing to myself as I pulled weeds in my yard. I was singing the Thayer song, "Nothing Can Trouble." This prayer is known as St. Teresa of Avila's bookmark because it was found marking a place in her prayer book at the time of her death. I know many of you will be familiar with it. Nothing can trouble, nothing can frighten. Those who seek God shall never go wanting. Nothing can trouble, nothing can frighten. God alone fills us. As I sang, I thought to myself, this is a lie. There is plenty that can trouble or frighten me. And God's people don't, in fact, never go wanting. But then I thought, when do I find myself singing this song? It's precisely when I am frightened, when I need to be reminded that God is with me, that God is at work, when I long to sense the filling of God, when I need to hear God's faithfulness and power proclaimed. Singing this song helps me move forward in the midst of trouble and fear. It gives me a foretaste of a new future. And we see something similar in the remarkable visionary realm of Revelation, which provides our text this morning. This book takes seriously the struggles, dangers, and fears of God's followers in a hostile world. Although the imagery of Revelation is not imagery that I find myself drawn to, it is very powerful imagery. It can stand up to the potent troubles that we ourselves are facing. Its early readers were waiting for God, anxious under the threat of the cross or the arena. There are bowls and bowls of their prayers present before God in heaven. Revelation's multi-layered imagery affirms and reaffirms that God is working out divine purposes in the world. It affirms that political and historical empires, the Roman Empire in particular, will end. It celebrates that God's victory is assured. And it sings. Oh, how it sings. In chapter 5, the author is in the throne room of heaven. God is seated on an elaborate rainbow-surrounded and thunder and lightning emitting throne. Around God's throne are crowned elders in white robes, flaming torches, and winged creatures. God is holding a scroll sealed with 7 seals. This scroll is understood to contain God's purposes for the future, laying out how it will be that God's will is to be done on earth as it is in heaven. As Joseph Mangina says, it entails the setting right of all that is wrong in human history, the defeating of the demonic powers who seek to frustrate God's purpose, and the establishment of that city in which the horrors of all merely human cities will be overcome. Those in heaven long to know that this will come to pass. And as we have just heard, John weeps at the thought that the scroll might not be opened, and the divine will of redemption, relief, salvation, justice, hope, peace will not come to fruition. "Do not weep, John," says one of the elders. "There is one worthy to open the scroll. The Lion of Judah, the Root of David, the Lamb, Jesus. Here is the source of your hope. Judah, the lion, blessed by his father Jacob to be strong and to rule, has shown his strength in suffering, death, and resurrection. The root of David, the one with a spirit of wisdom and understanding, the one who judges the poor with righteousness. This unifying ruler has made a people to serve God from all over the world. The slaughtered lamb, all seeing and imbued with power, the slaughtered lamb is the revealer. This is not a sentimental, cute little lamb. This is one who knows that serious problems need serious solutions. This lamb has been killed, but is standing. This lamb is beyond death. This lamb has conquered. This one goes to God and takes the scroll, assuming authority to execute God's will in history. This is a high point in the book of Revelation, one of its central revelations. The Lamb holds the scroll, holds power over history. The Lamb who was killed is the victor in the cosmic war. The empire will end. This was and is such an important message for those who wait, for those who long for decisive divine action, for those in the early church who were vulnerable to periodic martyrdom, for those who have been the victims of history over the centuries, for those who are still waiting to breathe free, for those who are walking through the valley of the shadow of death. At this point, the winged creatures and the elders break out in a new song, a song of God's salvific action. This Lamb has acted decisively in history and is worthy of worship. And then myriads of angels join the song, affirming the worth of the Lamb. And then every creature in heaven and on earth and under the earth and in the sea join in the song of praise to the Lamb, worshiping Jesus together with God. The scope of this cascade of praise, to use Brian Blunt's evocative term, is truly expansive. No one is left out of this hymn sing, as Luke Powery puts it. All sing that the Lamb is worthy to receive power, wealth, wisdom, might, honor, glory, and blessing. 7 things, fullness in this symbolic world. All are called to learn and sing the songs of heaven, to be, as Justo and Catherine Gonzalez say, to be attuned with the worship that takes place in heaven and with the ultimate goal of all creation. Our forebears in the faith have borne witness to this powerful spiritual practice of singing the songs of heaven alongside the heavenly hosts. In church history last week, we read about Perpetua, a young woman martyred for her Christian faith in Carthage in the year 203. In the arena, when the time came for her to respond to the idolatrous imperial request one last time, she asserted her freedom to refuse and began to sing. In the 12th century in Germany, scholar, mystic, composer, and abbess Hildegard of Bingen and her nuns were forbidden to sing because they stood up to the local bishop. Hildegard protested that this prohibition would harm her community's ability to bear witness to the end of time, to cultivate their soul's symphonic nature, and to move toward the celestial harmony lost in the fall, but restored in heaven. When Martin Luther's life was threatened during the Reformation, he wrote the famous hymn, "A Mighty Fortress is Our God," affirming that though this world with devils filled should threaten to undo us, their doom is sure, and God's kingdom is forever. The spirituals, sung by enslaved Africans, provided sustenance and meaning, as Catherine Williams has written, at the intersection of life, death, and hope. They sing, "Ride on, King Jesus. No one can hinder me. When I get to heaven, gonna wear a robe. No one can hinder me. Gonna see King Jesus sitting on the throne. No one can hinder me." In the 1980s, in the so-called singing revolution, the people of the small Baltic nation of Estonia used song festivals to propel forward their movement for freedom from Soviet domination. They sang forbidden songs in public amphitheaters in the face of their governors. And on a far more mundane but very present level, I got an email from my cousin a few days ago saying that he's been listening to Advent music for a little joy and sanity in these times. Friends, we are servants of God. The elders and the winged beasts sing to the Lamb. You are worthy, for you ransomed for God's saints from every tribe and language and people and nation. You have made them to be a kingdom and priests serving our God. Our singing is part of our divine service. And at the same time, it is a foretaste of heaven. And so let's tune our hearts to sing the songs of heaven. While we cannot sing together in Santee or other spaces, as we're accustomed to do, we can still sing in our hearts, in our devotions, in our showers, outdoors, even while muted on Zoom. Our singing bears witness to the Lamb in the midst of our anxious, dangerous, and weary world. It affirms that empires end. It claims that the future belongs to God. It prays, "Come, Lord Jesus." And so, let's now sing together. You servants of God, your sovereign proclaim.